Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 37 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 37 has 36 verses, and it's found in the Koran Sachs Chumash on page 248 and 249. In this chapter, we read about Yosef and the conflict that he had with his brothers. We learn an important lesson in not showing favorites to children, as Yosef was favored by his father Yaakov, a relationship marked by the special item of clothing that he presented to him. Yosef is a dreamer. He tells his brothers about two dreams that he had that imply future dominance and leadership, and that deepens the resentment that they had of him. And this is made only worse by the negative reports that Yosef would bring about his brothers. When Yosef is sent to check on them in Shechem, the brothers plot against him. Reuven intervenes to save his life, and Yosef is thrown into a pit. While Reuven is absent, Yehuda suggests selling Yosef instead of killing him, and Yosef is sold to passing merchants and taken to Egypt. The brothers deceive Yaakov by presenting Yosef's bloodied garment. Yaakov mourns deeply, not quite certain that Yosef is definitely dead, and Yosef descends down to Egypt, beginning the next stage of the family's destiny. With that introduction in mind, let us turn to chapter 37, verse 1. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv. Yaakov settled where his father had lived as a stranger, be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. And Rashi points out on this word Vayeshev that Yaakov, a big tzaddik, choosing to settle at this point in his life, was inviting trouble and problems. And so it seems that his attempt to take his foot off the gas and relax opened the door for the problems that he now would have with his son. Verse 2, Eile told us Yaakov. This is the story of Yaakov. Yosef ben Shiva Esrei Shana. Yosef was 17 years old. Haya roa es Echav batson. He was shepherding the flock with his brothers. V'hunar es bnei Vilha ve'es bnei Zilpa neshei aviv. But he was a youth with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, the wives of his father. Vayave Yosef es dibasam ra'a el avihem. And Yosef would bring bad reports about them to their father. Verse 3, V'Yisrael ohaves Yosef mikol banav. Yisrael loved Yosef more than all his other sons, ki ven zakunim hula, for he was a child of his old age. V'asalo kasones pasim, and he made him an ornately colored robe, known affectionately as the coat of many colors. Verse 4, Vayiru Echav, his brothers saw, Ki oso ohav avihem mikol echav, that their father loved him more than any of them. Vayisneu also, and they hated him. V'lo yachlu davro shalom, and could not say a peaceful word to him. Verse 5, Vayachalom Yosef chalom. Then Yosef had a dream, Vayaged la'echav, and he told it to his brothers, Vayosifu od snooso, and they hated him even more. Verse 6, Vayomer Alehem, and he said to them, Shimuna chalom hazeh asher cholamti. Listen to this dream that I had. Verse 7, V'hinei anachnu ma'almim, alumim v'soch hasadeh. We were binding sheaves in the field. V'hinei tama alumasi v'gam nitzava. And my sheaf rose and stood upright. V'hinei sesubena alumosechem. And your sheaves gathered around mine. V'tishtachavena la'alumasi. And bowed down to it. Verse 8, Vayomru lo echav. His brothers said to him, Hamaloch timloch aleinu? Do you mean to be king over us? Imashol timshol banu? Do you mean to rule over us? Vayasifu od snooso. Then they hated him even more, al chalamosav al dvarav, on account of his dreams and what he said. Verse 9, Vayachalom od chalom acher. Then he dreamt another dream. Vayisaper oso le'echav, and told it to his brothers. Vayomer, and he said, Hinei cholamti chalom od. I had another dream. V'hinei hashemesh v'hayareach. And this time the sun and the moon, v'achad asar kochavim, and 11 stars, mishtachavim li, were bowing down to me. And in this dream we are interpreting the sun as meaning Yaakov, the moon as meaning Rachel, and the 11 stars as the 11 brothers of Yosef. But let's keep in mind that Rachel has already died. So verse 10, Vayisaper el aviv ve'el echav, and he told his father and his brothers, Vayigar bo aviv, and his father rebuked him. Vayomer lo, and he said to him, Ma hachalom hazeh asher chalamta. What kind of dream is this that you have had? Havo navo, ani ve'imecha, va'achecha, lishtachavos lecha arza. Shall we really come, me and your mother and your brothers, to bow to the ground before you? And our rabbis point out a little coded message in these words. If we look at the phrase, Ma ha'chalom hazeh asher chalamta, what is this dream that you have dreamt? They say that if you look at the letters of asher chalamta, you can see coded in there a resh, a ches, a lamed, spelling the word Rachel, and a mem and a taf, spelling the word mace. Rachel, mace. So he's saying, how could you be having this dream where you dream about your mother bowing down to you? She's already dead. Verse 11, Vaikanu vo echav, his brothers were jealous of him, va'aviv shamar es hadavar, but his father kept the matter in mind. And on this word, shamar, which we would typically translate as guarding or protecting, our rabbis point out that it actually also implies that he was looking forward to this dream coming true. Verse 12, Vayelchu echav, his brothers went, liros es son avihem b'Shechem, to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Verse 13, Vayoma Yisrael el Yosef, Yisrael said to Yosef, Halo achecha ro'im b'Shechem, your brothers are pasturing the flocks near Shechem. Lecha ve'eshlochacha aleihem, you should go, I will send you to them. Vayomer lo, and Yosef said, Hineni, here I am. Verse 14, Vayomer lo, Yaakov said to him, Lech na re'es shlom achecha, go and see how your brothers are doing. Ves shlom hatzon, and how the flocks are doing. Vahashiveni davar, and bring me back word. Vaishlachehu me'emek Chevron, vayavo Shechema. And he sent him from the Chevron valley, and he came to Shechem. Verse 15, Vayimtsaehu ish, a man found him, V'nei soe basadeh, and he was lost in the field. Vayishalehu ha'ish leimor, and the man asked him, saying, Mat vakesh, what are you looking for? What are you searching for? Verse 16, Vayomer, and Yosef said, Es achai anochi mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers. Hagidana li eifo hem roim, can you tell me where they are pasturing the sheep? Verse 17, Vayomer ha'ish, the man said, Nasu mizeh, they have traveled on from here. Ki shomati omerim nelcha dosaina, I heard them saying, let us go to Dotan. Vayelech Yosef achar echav, vayimtsaem b'dosan. So Yosef went after his brothers and found them in Dosan. Verse 18, Vayiru osom merachok, and they saw him in the distance. V'terem yikrav aleihem, and before he reached them, vayisnaklu oso laham yisor, they plotted to kill him. And our rabbis point out, based on the fact that, again, this is not some TV show, this is not some drama, this is not some soap opera. These 12 brothers, they're all tzaddikim. And so the 11 brothers are sitting together, they're sitting as a beis din, and they're trying to adjudicate as to whether or not Yosef means them harm. Is he considered halachically a rodef? Is he pursuing them and pursuing their lives and putting them in danger? In which case he should be sentenced to death. It's not so straightforward as to say that they didn't like him and therefore they wanted to kill him. Verse 19, Vayomaru ish el achiv. So they said to one another, Hinei balachalamos halazeba. Here comes the dreamer. Verse 20, Va'ata, now, lechu v'nahargehu. Let's go and kill him. V'nashlichehu ba'achad haboros, and throw him into one of the pits. Va'amarnu chayara achalasuhu. And we can say that a wild animal ate him. V'nireh ma yihiu chalamosav, and then we shall see what becomes of his dreams. Verse 21, Vayishma Reuven, vayatzilehu mi'adam. Reuben heard this, and he saved him from their hands. Vayomer, and he said, Lo nakenu nafesh, let us not kill him. Verse 22, Vayomer aleihem Reuven, and Reuven said to them, Al tishpechu dam, do not spill blood. Hashlichu oso el habor hazeh, asher bamidbar, let's throw him into this pit in the desert. V'yad al tishlechu va, but do not lay hands on him. Leman hatzil oso mi'adam lahashivo el aviv. And that's because his plan was to rescue him and bring him back to his father. Verse 23, Vayihi kasher ba Yosef elechav. So when Yosef came to his brothers, Vayafshitu es Yosef es kutamto, they stripped Yosef of his robe, es kasenes hapasim asher alav, the ornately colored robe that he was wearing. Verse 24, Vayikachuhu, and they took him, Vayashlichu oso habora, and they threw him into the pit. Vahabor reik, the pit was empty, ein bo mayim, there was no water in it. And our rabbis point out that the fact that the Torah tells us that it was empty and there was no water, they read it as follows. It was empty, yes, there was no water in it, but there were snakes and scorpions. And so it's a miracle that he survived being in there. Verse 25, Vayeshvu le'echol lechem, and they sat down to eat. Vayisu einehem, and they lifted their eyes. Vayiru, and they saw. V'hinei orchas Yishmaelim ba'a mid-Gilad. They saw a caravan of Yishmaelim, of Ishmaelites, coming from Gilad. Ugmalehem nosim, and their camels were laden. Nochos suri valot. Camels were laden with spices, balm, and myrrh. Holchim lahorid Mitzrayma, to be taken down to Egypt. And our rabbis point out that this was a miracle as well, because the Yishmaelim usually traded in foul-smelling oils, and yet here we're reading about how they were carrying sweet-smelling spices, and this was all part of a chesed, of an act of generosity from the Almighty to Yosef, because he was a tzaddik, that when he was going to be taken down to Egypt, he should do so surrounded by nice smelling things. Verse 26, Vayomer Yehuda elechav. Yehuda said to his brothers, Ma betzak hina haroges achinu. What do we gain by killing our brother, the chisinu estamo, and covering his blood? Verse 27, Luchu, v'nimkarenu liishmaelim. Let's go and sell him to the Ishmaelim, v'yadenu al tehivo, and let's not harm him with our own hands. Ki achinu, for he is our brother, b'sarenuhu, he is our own flesh and blood. Vayishmu echav, and his brothers agreed, they listened to him. Verse 28, Vaya'avru anashim midyanim socharim. Some Midianite traders passed by. Vayimshchu vaya'alu es Yosef min habor, and they pulled Yosef up out of the pit. Vayimkaru es Yosef la Ishmaelim be'esrim kasef, and they sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Vayaviu es Yosef Mitzrayma, and they brought Yosef down to Egypt. And this is why it's important for us to go through this verse by verse, because it is often thought that the brothers sold Yosef down to slavery in Egypt. And yet, when you read through these verses, and pay close attention, a different narrative seems to emerge. Over the last couple of verses, we've read that they are ready to kill him, and yet Yehuda recommends that they sell him. So while Yosef is still down in this pit and they are deciding what to do, the verses say that a group of Midianites lifted him out of the pit and they sold him to Yishmael. And then Yosef was taken down to Egypt. So who was it? Was the brothers selling, or was it the Midianites selling? And there are lots of different answers to this. One answer is that indeed, yes, that's right. The brothers did not sell Yosef down to Egypt. It was actually the Midianites. However, the fact that they had the intention of doing this, it is considered as if they actually did sell him themselves. Another interpretation is that the Midianites and the Ishmaelites were really, it's all the same kind of people, and it was the brothers who indeed arranged the sale. And there are other answers as well. And I encourage you to spend time reading up on this, learning about this. It really is quite fascinating. Verse 29, Vayashav Reuven el Abor. Reuven returned to the pit. V'hinei ein Yosef Babor. And Yosef was not there. Vayikra es begadav. And he tore his clothes. Verse 30, Vayashav el Echav. And he returned to his brothers. Vayomar. And he said, Hayeled einenu. The boy is gone. Vani ana aniva. And I, where can I turn? Verse 31, Vayikru es kasones Yosef, and they took Yosef's garment, Vayishchatu seirizin, and they slaughtered a goat, Vayitbelu es hakutones badam, and they dipped the robe in blood. Verse 32, Vayishalchu es kasones apasim, and they sent this ornately colored garment, Vayaviu el avihem, and they brought it to their father, Vayomru zos matzanu, and they said, look, this is what we found. Hakerna, hakasones bincha hi imlo. Try and identify it. Is it your son's robe or not? Verse 33, Vayakira, and he recognized it. Vayomer, and he said, Kasones beni, it is my son's robe. Chaya ra'a achalasahu, a wild animal must have eaten him. Tarof taraf Yosef, Yosef is being torn limb from limb. Verse 34, Vayikra Yaakov simlosav, Yaakov tore his clothing, Vayasem sak b'masnav, and put sackcloth on his loins, Vayisabel al bano yamim rabim, and he mourned for his son for many days. Verse 35, Vayakumu chol banav v'chol benosav lenachamo. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, Vaima'ein lihisnachen, but he refused to be comforted. Vayomer, and he said, Ki ered el beni ovel she'ola, I will go down to Sheol, mourning for my son. Vayef oso aviv, and his father wept for him. And finally, verse 36, V'hamadanim machru oso el Mitzrayim. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold him to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, Lefotifar Sris Paro, Sar HaTabachim, to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, captain of the guard. And some rabbis say that he was the holding merchant who would take a lot of assembled slaves and then sell them on from there. That's who Yosef ends up with at the end of this chapter. And we're not going to pick up again with Yosef's story until chapter 39. In the next chapter, in chapter 38, we're going to take a massive detour and talk about a completely different topic, a completely different episode, which is the story of Yehuda and Tamar. So that's going to be in the next chapter. I look forward to learning it with you. And in the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.